All right, so hear the word of the Lord from Hebrews chapter 12. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your own blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. In other words, hang in there because you're actually God's kids. Understand that what God does, if this madness is at his control, and it is, he does this to shape us. But he does that because he loves us. That doesn't mean that God is abusing us and sort of trying to create some sort of weird Stockholm syndrome relationship. That means recognize that God himself did shed his blood for you. God himself was tempted to the point of dying for you and for me. This pain that God knows is going in this world, he himself bore it upon the cross for you, for me, to get us through it, so that when we are in the middle of it, we would not grow faint-hearted, because we know that we already have the victory. Christ has already borne this and worse. He has already conquered death for us, so that when we ourselves are found in it, we are not apart from God, we are not apart from his promises, and most importantly, we are not apart from the identity that we have in the waters of our baptism. You are baptized, you are God's children, and so the way that God treats you, he treats his kids that he loves. That means there's actually something to learn in the middle of all this. That means that when you are taken from the Lord's house and you can actually grow to miss it, you can see the Lord working good in there. That means that when you are divorced from your neighbor that bugs you so much, but you finally get to go back to them and you're actually excited to see them again because you were so isolated and so lonely, that by the time you get to see somebody who you normally had a problem with, but now you're happy to see them again, it's a gift. God did something good there. That means that when communities rally together in the midst of trial and temptation, that means that when neighbors even share a roll of toilet paper here and there, that means that God is working something good down here. And that's chiefly the measurement of God. Not whether or not there's bad things happening, but whether or not he himself will be found among them. Look to the cross for that. Of course God was willing to be found among the bad things happening. He did not stop short of shedding his blood for this. He did not stop short of the grave to save you from this. So that as you find yourself in this, you wouldn't be overwhelmed. You wouldn't be exhausted. But you would recognize that God is working good even in the middle of this, because everything he does for you as children, he does for your good. So you can take the bad and hold it up as some sort of proof that God doesn't exist. But that's sort of like taking up the cross where Jesus bore bad and suffering and saying there's no such thing as Jesus who's dying on that cross. It just doesn't make sense. Instead of measuring God's existence by bad stuff, measure his existence by his presence within it. Look to the cross, and that makes seeing the rest of this a lot easier.